Right. Whew. Seems like every time I do this, I always end up having to move closer. There we go. All right, if you're watching this after the fact, you guys know I always give everybody a few minutes to jump on. Big Dog Brett, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys so much for being here. We got a busy house today, so I had to move from my normal position. Whew, it's warm. What's going on, guys? It's warm out today. Woo. You guys know the drill here. We normally give everybody a few minutes to jump on, so we'll get started here in just a few minutes. Kaden, can you grab that fan for me? Ooh, man, it is warm out this morning. Lots to talk about today. What's going on, Jonathan? He knocked me off there for a second. How's the feed? Is it pretty clear this morning? I had to move spots. Got you some Parker's breakfast. Man, I made breakfast casserole this morning. Had hibachi last night. It was delicious. Awesome, thank you. Okay, and there's already an extension cord over here, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Just waiting to get a few more people on. We'll get rolling here in just a second, guys. It's getting close. I think there's like 60-something days left. Got to get my key grip over here to give me some quality of life going. Back that up a little bit so it's not so loud. That's my son. Hey, what's your stream name?
Huh?
What name are you streaming under? Is it XX Mr. Dash Bombi or what is it?
Mr. Bombi Dash 03. Or yeah, it's XX Mr. Bombi Dash 03 XX.
It's XX Mr. Bombi Dash 03 XX.
Yes, because for some reason it won't let me put just Mr. Bombi Dash 03 because it contains spaces between the dash.
So for those of you who are into Fortnite and Apex, he streams that every now and then, so he's starting to get more serious about it. What's going on, Mark Paul? All right, we're getting close to about the 4 or 5 minutes mark. What's going on, kid? Ooh, it's warm out. I just want y'all to know I'm enjoying my fan. I am.
It's hot over here.
Well, in just a little while, that sun's going to come over the edge of the house, and it's going to get uncomfortable. So, fortunately, I was at a pretty decent setup this morning, so I was able to transition pretty quick. So, all right, we're about 5 minutes in, and more people will jump on as we go. I'm going to go through this. You guys will hear me say this a couple of times through at 64 days. Yeah, I thought it was like 65, but it's just 64. Good deal. You guys are going to hear me say this several times throughout kind of my next several videos. Golly, I should have put on aftershave. It's killing me this morning. They're still doing renovations next door, so you guys are going to see a lot of foot traffic around that place. They're trying to get it ready to get sold. Throughout the next several streams, throughout the next several videos, you guys are going to see me ask you to share, ask you guys to thumbs up the videos. I'm going to try not to be aggravating about it, but I do have a goal. I want to try to get to 2,000 subscribers before the beginning of the season starts. It's a hefty goal. It really is. I'm at 1,500 now. It's taking me a while to get here. I'm going to start putting out more videos. I'm probably going to do another hype video, but believe it or not, it's really hard to find music that kind of fits that whole thing. But anyway, if I can get you guys to share to Facebook, to Twitter, whatever you guys want to share to, whatever you can share to, that would be awesome. It's when I first started out, man, I remember when I did my very first live stream, and I had like 3 people. The next live stream I had 1. And that went on for a while. I mean, that was concurrence. That was I was 20 minutes into the video, nobody was on, I had nothing to talk about, I was reading from notes and just trying to see what I could do. And fortunately, thanks to you guys, we've managed to get to 1,500. We just hit that number here recently, and that's all thanks to you guys. So thank you so much for sharing. You might have been that first one, kid. You've been around for a long time, man. We really appreciate you guys. So I'm gonna try to find some music to do some more hype videos. There's a guy out there, his name is Hayden T or Hayden YT or something like that. Yeah, Uncle Lou's trying to get to 20,000, man, and he's getting there. Everybody starts with 1. Man, it was really hard getting to 1,000. Getting to 1,000 was really tough. I had some help from Volunteer Roadshow. He was really kind of the first guy. Yep, I was in a truck at work. Yep, you're right. He was in a truck I was in a truck at work. Volunteer Roadshow reached out to me, and he had me on his show a couple of times. Really great guy. He's really been through some tough stuff. That guy is authentic. He's as real as they get. He's also trying to take his show to the next level. So if you guys get an opportunity, go over there, support his channel, Volunteer Roadshow. His name is Bobby C. They call him Catfish. He does live shows from all over the country. Really nice guy. Get a chance to check him out. What got me interested in the whole thing was I started watching Uncle Lou a couple of years ago, and Uncle Lou, he has a lot of panache, man. The guy's got a lot of passion. I really like watching him. His videos are funny. I kind of have an over-the-top personality sometimes. He does a great job of making content, and he's helped me a couple of times. He's been on my show. I've been on his show a couple of times. Really nice guy. If you get a chance, go check him out. I try to be different from other people out there. I try to be myself. I don't try to push in anything in any particular direction. I just try to be me. You know, there was a couple of times I tried to force content, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel natural. It felt scripted. And I mean, there's some stuff that I do that is scripted, but there's some stuff that the moment I try to do it, it just feels fake, so I don't do it. All right, that having been said, there's a lot going on this week, believe it or not. I know we're still basically 2 months out, but there's a lot going on. There's tons of visits that are happening at these colleges and universities. Kendall Milton's one of them. If you guys don't know much about Kendall Milton, he's a 5-star running back. This guy's an absolute phenom. And by the way, for those of you who are on the channel, you may have noticed there's times when I get names swapped around, or I'll get a position swapped around, or I'll say something like offensive linebacker, and it's because I'm kind of in the heat of the moment. I get hyped up and I get excited, and stuff just kind of comes out wrong. There was even one of the other videos I said something, it was one of the Clemson videos, I said something about a player being gone from the team. He actually wasn't gone from the team. I was just in the heat of the moment. So I'm not a sportscaster. I don't do it for a living. I wish I could, but yeah. Jermaine said he stopped subscribing to people when they don't return the favor back. I believe I subscribed to you though, sir. I'm not saying that you're just saying I didn't. I'm pretty sure I did though. I hope we flip Breezy. I saw him at 11:11. He's unblockable. I think you're right. One of the things that we really need to do though is we've got to focus on a couple of things, and we're doing a good job of building that. We got to keep the offensive line, defensive line strong. Of course, you want talent at every position. But one of the positions that I think we really need is we need another player like Roquan Smith. And I've been thinking about this more and more as the seasons went on. Yes, sir. You got a question there, Mr. Bombi? No? Okay. So, as the off seasons went on, there's been this glaring thing that's kind of jumped out at us, and which is the lack of sacks. We finished, I think, 9th and then 12th in the SEC in 2 years, back to back. 9th and then 12th, or something ridiculous like that. Dead last in all of college football. I mean, and that's over like Baylor. I mean, it's really bad. Quay Walker, maybe, maybe we'll see. Monte Rice, I'd love to see him step up, but I think it goes to show how much talent Roquan Smith really had. What a dominant force he was for the University of Georgia, and what we really didn't do a good job of cultivating. Like to have Burks, you know. I mean, if we did a better job of cultivating the talent that we have, if we did a better job of filling that linebacker position, I think we'd have been better off. But we haven't done a very good job of that. Does anyone know when the first day of practice for Georgia's start is? I do not know that either. Codeine as Roquan Jr. I hope so. We'll see. For those of you who don't know, we also had a decommit. I can't pronounce the guy's name. It's like Akinola or Akinola. I'm not sure, and I don't want to butcher the guy's name. He had originally committed to another university and then turned around and recommitted, or had turned around and flipped to Georgia. And then after that, his grandmother or grandfather, somebody got sick. It might even have been his mom. I can't remember exactly. I remember reading the story, and I immediately went, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. That guy wants to be close to his family. I can completely understand that. I don't blame him for wanting to move back and still wanting to play football. In all likelihood, if something happens and his mom gets better, but I don't think that's in the prognosis. I think that it's going to end up being he'd come back to Georgia in a heartbeat. But I just think it's one of those things where he still has to try to look forward to his career. But he's also got to be around his family, and he's still young. I mean, so I completely get that. That having been said, Georgia's still holding on to the 4th place spot. And something else I noticed I wanted to talk about. One of the other things I noticed was there's a lot of what's up, OG Fran, excuse me. There's a lot of people that talk about how the SEC, what's going on, Brian? Talk about the SEC and how they're not the strongest conference, or there's other conferences that are stronger. And I really don't see it this year. I mean, I usually don't see it at all, but I really don't see it this year, especially the SEC West. And one of the things that you can routinely point at is that the recruiting is very, very strong in the SEC. I mean, out of the top 4 teams in recruiting for 2020, 3 of them are in the SEC. So people are sleeping on Matt Landers because of his G-Day performance. I think this guy has a lot of talent. Yeah, that's true too. Depth all around the SEC. That's why the SEC is best. You beat me to it, Brian. What I was going to say is that when you have that many highly recruited classes all in one conference, it's going to breed a much better caliber of football in that particular conference. Has anyone heard the status of Mathis? He had brain surgery after the spring game. I believe he's fine now. I believe he was actually cleared to play. I haven't heard anything since, so I'm going to go ahead and assume that he was okay. So let's kind of talk about it a little bit. So Mark Richt, I don't know who he was interviewed by. I can't remember. It was like, I don't know, somebody. More players in the NFL from the SEC. There's a lot more. Mark Richt was recently interviewed and talked about, how he thought the University of Georgia was doing. Now, of course, Mark Richt has always been more of a soft-spoken guy. He's not one to really ruffle feathers anyway. So whenever he talks, I kind of try to read between the line, and maybe I'm way off base. But it seemed like he couldn't help but say that he had a lot of players on those teams. Everybody knew that. He didn't have to come out there and say it. Of course, he said, he was glad to see the direction that Kirby Smart was taking the team, and You know, he was glad to see that University of Georgia was doing well and that it should do well and this, that, and the other. But it just seemed to me like he couldn't help but just kind of throw it out there that, you know, a lot of those were his players. Fine, I don't have a problem with saying that, but don't take credit for anything the team's really doing right now, because you had all those same players and you couldn't do it. So I don't want to hear the excuses. That's just me. So I'm very thankful that, you know, Mark Richt got the program started out the way he did and then got it to where he did. He had a good long tenure at Georgia. Which one you keep, Richt or McGarity? If I have to get rid of one, I'm getting rid of Richt. Richt was a good coach. He was a really good coach. Was he a great coach? No. And the reason I say that is anytime that he played a top 10 team, you could almost always bet against him and win. He was not good against top 10 teams. I mean, even the top 25, he seemed to struggle sometimes. And there were games that you would think that you would win. My wife's taking him a picture. Nerd. She's gonna post it on Facebook. Make a nerd out of me. Anyway, so he'd get into a game where he should win that game, but man, he would just struggle so bad. Golly, the one that there was a game that really kind of got me over the Mark Richt syndrome of being in love with that guy. He didn't take advantage of his talent. No, he didn't. He did not. Hold on. So Mark Richt, there was a game that years ago that Alabama come to play in Athens. And for those of you that have been watching football for a long time, you'll know the game I'm talking about. It was the first time in years that anybody that played Alabama had been favored to beat them. He come to Georgia. Nick Saban came to Sanford Stadium and hung 51 on us. And I think we scored 14 or 17 points. It was an absolute embarrassment. They ran up and down the field on us, left and right. And I'm thinking, how in the world are we supposed to be favored and still lose this bad at home? And that game right there was the game that I said Mark Richt just cannot get it done. He just can't. So we got to find somebody else. And I think it was 2 or 3 seasons after that we finally got rid of him. And that's the term. And I come up with a term, and I've used it in several games, and it's called Richting. Get into a game where you should beat somebody else. Everybody says you should beat them, and then you lose in dramatic fashion. That's called Richting. So anyway, let me get off that before I get too fired up. Georgia was favored. Georgia was favored by, I think, a touchdown. It was just, he just get out coached, man. He just get completely out coached. Embarrassed the fans, because fans like me, you know, we're gonna talk a lot of smack. Psh. If DJ Shockley played in the area with the players that we had in 2017, no. I think that college football has taken huge strides forward. I think the offensive play schemes, the defensive play schemes have changed dramatically. I think the caliber and talent of the player has changed dramatically. Unless you're talking, I think it's what qualifies for a 5-star player now would have been a breakout phenom player back in the early 90s. I think if you took guys like Cam Newton and you started him over right now, it was a blackout game. If you started over right now, it would you wouldn't see the same kind of performance out of these teams. The sport has progressed so much. It's not just line it up and run it down your throat anymore. Georgia likes to try to do that. You look at the size of the players, they're bigger. You look at the speed of the players, they're faster. These guys start going to football camps in middle school sometimes to start learning how to be elite level players. I mean, there's guys now that are getting scouted in middle school. Think about that, middle school. I got a 15-year-old son. I can't imagine a college scout scouting him right now. I mean, my son's in, I say he's in middle school. Good Lord, it shows my age. My son's he's 15 now. He's about to be 16. So I can't even imagine a college scout wanting to come to me to talk to me. And he's at the age where they're scouting these guys. So, you know, to see these guys running 4.3s and 4.5s and going to these football camps, it's just incredible. So, I mean, I don't think one player now would make that big of a difference. I would love to have seen what Roquan Smith would have done if he played on DJ Shockley's team back then. I think that would have been incredible to see. So I'm going to change gears a little bit. If you guys have been watching, you've probably seen that there's been a lot of talk in the news on the recruiting, not recruiting news, on a lot of the sports sites about wanting to change the venue from Jacksonville, the Georgia-Florida game in Jacksonville, to making it a home and away series. And I've kind of got feelings on both sides of the fence. You know, part of me is like, man, I really like the tradition. Yeah, they have camps all the time in Atlanta. I live close to Atlanta, and you see that stuff in the feeds all the time. It's incredible. Please do a home and away. It's best to me. I'm okay with playing a neutral site, so long as it's a neutral site. But I don't think anybody on either side of the ball can look each other in the eye and go, yeah, Jacksonville's neutral. Oh my God. The place is incredible to play at. The environment is outstanding. But I think you would get the same kind of environment if you played that game, and let's just say, I don't know, Dothan, Alabama. Not that there's a stadium there that'll hold everybody, but I'm just saying, if you're going to play in a neutral site, play in a neutral site. Gainesville to Jacksonville isn't far. Athens to Jacksonville is a drive. So typically when they play in Jacksonville, the Georgia players will drive down the night before and stay in a hotel. The day of the game, if it's later in the day, usually they'll just drive from Gainesville over to the game in a bus. It's not a big deal. I get college football and it happens, but if we want to talk about what's fair for the teams, then that's what's fair for the teams. So that's the way that's going to go. I think a home and away series would probably be better for Georgia. I think right now, essentially, it's always a home game for Florida. And Kirby Smart said pretty much since day one that he's wanted to make that a home and away series. So I don't see any problem with changing that to a home and away series. I'm fine with it. I think that's something that should have been done years and years ago. There's a lot of tradition there, but the playing that game in Jacksonville, it's not a college campus. It's a professional stadium. It's not a neutral site. I mean, there's a lot of negatives there for Georgia, so I can understand them wanting to swap it. As far now, that also leads into the conversation about, you know, Georgia flip-flopping with Auburn to have the Auburn. Basically, it helps Auburn in that Auburn doesn't have to play Georgia and Alabama at home one year and then playing both away the next year. Hey, what's going on, Artie? Thanks for joining the channel, bud. What's up, Mark Paul, Brian Adams? Let me scroll through the feed here, make sure I didn't miss anybody. Hey, Sarah, Kevin, what's up, Jermaine, Dwayne? You're always in here, dude. Thanks for that. A lot of you guys are. I really appreciate it. They're never going to change it. Yeah, I wish they would, though. So, well, they said we never have a college football playoff. We got that. So, I guess we can't complain too much. So, let's jump back a little bit to the 150 number. Hey, what's going on, Keith? It needs to be home and home. It does. I think that's fair for both. OG France says someone made a pretty good argument that this current Georgia team would just steamroll over competition during the start of Saban's tenure. I think that's true. I think a lot of teams would too. I think LSU could do the same. That's like Northern schools will say Alabama won't play a home and away against a great opponent. Not true. Neutral site stadiums tend to be big. Alabama 100,000 plus. Duke less than 40. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that to a point. So The 150 number, you guys may have seen I posted that in the top of the video. My chat feed's not staying up. Auburn rivalry is bigger than UF. Yes, to me personally, I think that the Georgia Auburn rivalry. This is my opinion in college football on the rivalries. Who do I think will be upset in week 1? I don't know yet. I'm hoping Alabama, but I doubt it. So I think that in Georgia rivalries, I think the very top of the list is Auburn. And it's because there's been so many times where those games were so close and we've had heartbreak games because of it. It ruined our season, things like that. I can't stand Auburn. I can't. I think you got Georgia and Auburn, and then this is the Georgia team. Georgia Tech, and then Georgia, Florida, and then like right there, in my opinion, like right there, Georgia, South Carolina. Tennessee's starting to get on the list, but I think the only rivalry bigger than Florida, Georgia is Auburn and Alabama. The Iron Bowl, man, that's always a good game. UF only seems bigger because UF is an East team. There is some validity to that argument. That game is more important to us because we have to beat them. So I actually would very much agree that the Auburn game is bigger than the Auburn Alabama game is bigger than the Georgia Florida game. I would agree with that, but that's an in-state game. Both of you guys happen to be in the same conference, which is kind of weird if you think about it. I think that's the only state that has 2 SEC teams in it, unless I'm losing my mind. What state is Vandy in? I always forget about those guys. There's another state that's got it. Is Vandy in Tennessee or Kentucky? I always forget. Somebody knows the answer to that. I know somebody does. The Vandy commode doors. Tennessee, that's right. But let's face it, neither one of those teams neither one of those teams really qualify to be in the SEC. So I don't get why so many people predict Florida to win the East this season based off of what? Talk to Artie. Apparently Artie knows a guy who knows another guy who heard a guy at the horse track whisper something else about that game. He knows a guy who knows a horse guy. Yeah. So the 150 number, apparently this year marks 150 years of college football. I don't understand how that works, because I think that's just the date that they're picking. I think they're going to say 150 years this year because there's different teams that started at different times. Maybe there's another factor there I'm not aware of, but if there is, somebody clue me in, because I don't know. But here's what's interesting. I don't really care that much about the 150 number. Yay, it's a 150 years. That's awesome. College football none of us were alive when it started. None of us were alive by several decades when it started, but I'm glad to see that it's still around. But there's been a picture that's been posted that it showed a white jersey, a UGA white jersey with a 150 patch on it right here. And by the way, I think Princeton and Rutgers, or Princeton and Yale, or Princeton and somebody is playing like some big game, and they put the 150 patch on the jersey. There's a picture of 2 UGA jerseys, a white one and a black one. Now that was not done on accident, I can assure you. That was done on purpose. But the question is, which game are they going to play that black jersey in? I've been trying to figure that one out. Yeah, there's a picture out there that's got the black jersey with the 150 patch on it right here. Well, since it's flipped around right here. So, to me, and I already know where Keith is. Keith on this, Keith Carr, I know he's in the stream. He hates it when people change jerseys. He thinks it's just dumb. He thinks there's no use for it. He says it can throw the players off. I agree with that to a point. But man, they look cool. Oh, he's like Keith Carson, throw the black in the trash. I knew that was coming, man. Golly, but those jerseys look cool, man. They do look cool. I think he thinks they're bad luck. And to a point, I kind of agree. But golly, man, they look cool. I love those. Look at those jerseys. You know what? I would love to see him wear those too. I would love to see him wear them against Florida. But I'm also of the camp that if you're gonna wear them against Vandy, cool. If you're gonna wear that black jersey, you better win that game. Because, man, you get the fan base hyped up, you black out everything, and the fans, when they show up blacked out, you can tell. They've done it at Sanford Stadium, and that whole stadium would just, there was a few speckles of red here and there, but everything else was black. It was incredible. But I think if you're going to win, if you're going to wear the black jerseys, I think you should wear them in a game that you're pretty sure you're going to win. I don't think you should use it as a hype tool. Fran, that jersey is not a normal jersey. That's not one of our what you call standard jerseys that you wear. And as a matter of fact, if you change jerseys, you have to get permission from the other team to change jerseys. Now, it's almost never declined. They almost never say you can't wear that jersey. But it's one of those things that can change the dynamic out there if you're playing. Now, there was years ago, I can't remember who did it, and I can't remember if it was Georgia or somebody else. But there's a team, I think it's Boise State. They play with a blue field. The entire field's blue. They spend thousands and thousands of dollars making the field blue, and it messes with a lot of the players because they're really not used to a blue backdrop. Whenever you're standing on that turf looking downfield, everything's blue and white instead of green and white. And there's always been that Smurf turf. Yeah, Smurf turf. The stuff is weird to play on, and there's been teams that have dyed their own practice field blue to get used to playing against it. One off uniform misdirects the focus of those teams, in my opinion, and I can agree with that to a point. I believe that if you're playing a big game and you're used to practicing, you're used to playing in black and white jersey, or black and red, or red and white jerseys, red and white jerseys, red and white jerseys, and all of a sudden you throw on a black jersey, I don't know if it takes a tenth of a second or a looky-loo to make sure, just not quite as confident. I can see that playing a factor, and that's why some people don't like the changing jerseys. Now, if you're playing somebody like West Monroe, Louisiana, and you want to do black jerseys just because you think it's cool, you know you're going to crush them, fine, so be it. And if you're doing it for the fan base, and so because the fans like it, fine, so be it. But I do not think you should roll out onto a national championship stage in a uniform that you haven't played in all year. But I want to see Alabama sport those ice jerseys. I haven't seen those ice jerseys. I'll go look them up. I wonder though, now that we're on the topic, I wonder if Oregon has to do that basically every game to get permission from the other team to change jerseys. Because how would you know what their standard jersey is? They change jerseys every game, man. So, we've reached a little over the halfway point, guys. I mentioned this at the very beginning. A lot of you guys have jumped on since then. First of all, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get to 2,000 subscribers by the beginning of the season. It's about 2 months away, and it's going to take, it's a lofty goal for where we're at right now as far as a fan base system goes. But what it's going to take is it's going to take you guys sharing the videos on YouTube, sharing on Twitter, sharing on Facebook. If you see that stuff, please share it. There's links everywhere to share it. If you've got a feed like mine, you know, there's probably people that have me blocked in my feed because I post stuff in it about this channel. Granddaughter's visiting South Carolina. Granny has got to run. Thanks, Sarah. You have a good one. Visiting from South Carolina. Get her to stay. We need more Dogs fans. If you guys would share the video, I have a Twitter. I'm not as active on it as I should be, but I do post stuff on there. It's at UGA Big Dog Brett. So if you guys want to follow me over there, tag me over there, that's great. I also have a Facebook page, Big Dog's Doghouse. If you guys want to look over there and follow me over there, that's great. I am in a ton of groups. Bye, Sarah. I'm in a ton of groups, and I'm in those groups, and I post in those groups all the time, but I'm in those groups because I want to see what's going on. Thanks, Fran. I really appreciate the super chat. It certainly helps the channel. We appreciate that. If you guys will share around, subscribe, like, hit the bell notification. I'm not sure how all that stuff works through the logarithms, but I really do appreciate it. Thumbs up does help get the channel pushed up in the recommended category when other people are looking for videos about UGA or college football. It does get it pushed up in there, so I really appreciate that as well. Okay. As far as the games being played this year, Georgia's schedule is not one of the easiest ones in college football. I'd probably say it's probably in the top 10. That's just my own perspective and how I look at it. But I also think that strength of schedule, while not overly difficult, I think that strength of schedule will certainly help Georgia make a argument for a college football playoff appearance, provided something goes wrong at some point. If more likely than not, we're either going to end up playing Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, and an outside chance Auburn for the SEC championship. All of those teams have pretty tough schedules as they play each other, and it's very possible that that whole side of that conference could cannibalize itself. It's not likely, but it's possible. Is it possible that the SEC East is going to cannibalize itself? That's even more remote. That's even further out there, and it's highly unlikely that that's going to happen just because of the dramatic difference in talent. Did I see Hamilton versus Montreal game? Sorry to change the subject, but I was curious. I did not see that game. Sorry, no. I don't even know what sport that is. I live for college football, man. And once college football goes away, I spend hours on forums and searching through groups, looking for little tidbits of information that I think I can share that you guys might not know about, so that, you know, I can find something interesting to talk about. But no. CFL, Canadian Football League, dude. I've tried to watch that, and I cringe every time they throw that ball downfield because I can just see somebody running into that goalpost, man. No, just Florida and Georgia contending in the East. If there was a contender for the East besides Georgia, it would be Florida. But they got a long way to go. Georgia's pretty well stacked, so we'll see what happens there. SEC East will be stronger than the West is stronger than the East for sure. I have to agree with that statement entirely, and I think it's going to stay that way for the next couple of years. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot from the other teams in the East to be able to eclipse Georgia. In order to catch Georgia, you not only have to be going as fast as Georgia, you got to go faster. You got to make a lot more ground up. You can't just go out there and pick up 2 or 3 5 stars. And yeah, West has been stronger than East for a long time now. You can't just go out there and recruit a couple of 5 stars and 5 or 6 4 stars and think that's going to catch Georgia. That's not going to happen. Insider info on recruiting, throw us some hints. Okay, fair enough. So a lot of people are curious about Kendall Milton. Kendall Milton is the next 5-star running back that Georgia's really trying to recruit. Ooh, Artie says Georgia and Florida is better than every team in the West except Alabama. Wow. That's a bold statement, my friend. I'll have to revisit that comment momentarily. So, when you're looking at Kendall Milton is he's a player who's got a very, very deep attachment to his grandfather his great grandfather who passed away. A very deep attachment. So much that he has a tattoo on his right arm commemorating his grandfather, and it's pretty moving if you look into it. Georgia's smart enough that they picked up on that, and they asked him about his tattoo, because I mean, for a young guy to have a tattoo like that on his arm, it must have meant something. And then they even went into the fact that they took a picture that they took of him, and instead of it being like the full upper body torso, which they normally do, they kind of cut it right here. I've got to get past Miami first. Yeah. They cropped it down to here, and then they added in the backdrop a black and white of him and his grandfather. And that was very, very touching. Even his dad, Kendall Milton's dad, saw that and brought him to tears. That's a very emotional connection. And I'm not saying it was done as a tactic, but I think it was amazing touch for Georgia to say, hey, not only do we want you to come here as a player, we care. We pay enough attention. Tua pulled a hammy. What? Hey, that's okay. He don't run anyway. Oh, they're going to beat Miami worse than they beat Michigan. We'll see what happens. I think Manny Diaz. There we go. He may have something to say about that. His dad said UGA checked off every box. He said that whenever he visited the university, that one of the things that they did is it was very informal. It wasn't, super structured. They gave those guys a lot of flexibility, a lot of room to move around. They had access to everybody. I'll get to you in just a second, J-Boy. And said that they answered all of their academic questions. And one of the things that I've noticed is that UGA has done a fine job of telling these players that, look, it's an outside shot that you're going to go pro. I mean, very few people make it. Richt is not in Miami now. Miami can win big games now. That is true, especially your in-state rivalry, one of your in-state rivalries. So whenever you've got the UGA staff who say, hey, not only do we want you here as a football player, we care about your future progression. UGA can turn around and point at that. So you see this player over here? We let that player go to another school, no problem. We let him transfer out. This guy decommitted. We fully supported him because of the circumstances that happened in his life. We care about our players. That makes a big impact on a lot of these players that are out there. Whenever you see a five-star come to the college, obviously one of the first things in their mind is the only thing they want me here is football talent. What else can they do for me? UGA does a really good job of saying, hey, in all likelihood, you're not going to, it's likely based off just the numbers that you're not going to be a pro. Now, we do put a lot of guys in pro, but if you don't go pro, we want to make sure that you have a substantial backup plan to continue forward in life. Should you get an injury, which is a real possibility when you're playing at this level, should you decide that football is just not for you, there's a lot that can happen in life that can prevent you from moving forward. We want to make sure you're taken care of. So UGA has been very, very fortunate to be able to hire the kind of people that can portray that message, and that the athletic staff is behind them now. If Kirby Smart points at something right now and says he wants it, he gets it. And I think that's different than when Mark Richt was there. I think that there was a thanks for the super chat, Mark. I think there was a real problem back then whenever Mark Richt wanted something like an indoor training facility. A lot of people say that was something that Kirby Smart got done. And while Kirby Smart may have been the one to finally get it pushed over the cliff, Mark Richt was pushing for that for years, and we finally got it. So it's really, really hard to to hold a whole lot against Mark Richt in that aspect. I think the mentality changed. I think that when Kirby Smart came home, there was a big push to start getting all these things in place, and I think the athletic department athletic director finally got on board. So now we're recruiting at a level we've really never recruited at, never been able to recruit at, because you do have to compete with other schools. And believe it or not, even though Georgia is recruiting as high as they are recruiting now, there are other facilities in the country that their facilities are still better than Georgia's. Hey, Paul, brother, I appreciate it. I appreciate anybody that feels like they want to donate to the channel. That is amazing that you guys do that. Certainly don't feel like you have to, but it is greatly appreciated. How much do I believe in 24/7 of Rival Sports rankings is biases to who they scout? So there's a lot of things that go on in the recruiting aspect. There's tons of players. Hold on. Mr. Bombi, what's up? I can't, dude. I'm right in the middle of this, man. I'll be in there in a little while. So there's players, and keep in mind there's players that are 3 stars now that are recruited and committed to Georgia that will earn a 4-star ranking, or may a 4-star that may even earn a 5-star ranking. And if you look at how razor thin some of these 4 stars are from being 5 stars, it's entirely conceivable that these guys could be ranked higher sooner. So, but anyway, do I think there's bias? No, not really. I think it's possible. J-Boy asked a question earlier, and I missed it, and I'll have to get back to it. They hate putting 2 SEC in the playoffs, but we deserve it, and of course Bama does. Big Dog Brett, have you been watching the Women's World Cup? No, I have not, dude. I am starting to get a little more into soccer. It's starting to kind of rub on me a little bit. The Atlanta United is a really, really good soccer team. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Keith Carr is he's my cousin, but we grew up in the same house most of the time. So really, really close ties to him. He lives pretty close to where I do. And this guy, he's really, really in tune with Atlanta sports. He watches the Braves, he watches the Atlanta United, he watches the Dogs, he watches the Falcons. He's kind of getting me more in the direction of watching the Atlanta United. So I struggle to watch the Falcons, man. They keep letting me down. Georgia recruiting is beast mode. It's definitely intense. Some of the 3 and 4 stars from Texas, Georgia, Florida, and Cali could be underrated. We've had some 3 stars. There's Keith Carr, go Braves, World Series bound, book it. If we can get Terrain to throw the freaking ball, Christ, on a cracker. So anyway, I get really emotionally invested in football, and really emotionally invested in baseball, and really emotionally invested in any sport I'm watching. And sometimes it's just too much. I get so bent out of shape on some of this stuff. I have to make myself pump the brakes sometimes. Jay Boy, you had a question earlier, sir. I'm sorry I missed it. Can you throw it back in the chat so I don't have to scroll all the way down a mile and try to find it again? I wanted to answer your question. I just got away from it. What do I think about the Lakers? Basketball, to me, I just watched a lot of basketball growing up. Basketball is like golf for me. I like playing it, but I don't really like watching it unless it's the finals or something like that. The question I had was, how do I think we're going to do this year? Okay. So I've made a couple of videos, I think, that I'll run through the schedule. Or maybe I haven't. Maybe I should. Georgia should dominate the East, and that's not just coming from a guy who's a Georgia homer or a Georgia fan. Basketball isn't interesting until postseason, and only slightly interested in. I agree. I enjoyed basketball more when we used to watch it with our friend Mike when he was at we'd go over and play basketball at his house, and then we watched the Bulls. And the only reason we watched the Bulls was because Mike was from Chicago and he knew a lot about the team, and it was really interesting to watch the Bulls back in the day. But since then, I really have kind of lost touch with basketball. How are we going to do this year? Oh, man. We should dominate. I don't really see any trap games. As far as anybody to really be concerned about, the only person out there, or only team out there in the East that I would give any kind of serious watch to would be Florida. I think they're the next closest to us. Now, as far as in the West, you got to watch out for Texas A&M. Texas A&M is certainly a team that can play Georgia close. Georgia doesn't have the best track record on the road against SEC West teams. I personally think that's kind of a misnomer. I think that that's a coincidence because Georgia can go to North Bend and stomp on people. Georgia can go out to Pasadena and stomp on people. I just think it's just kind of worked out that way. So I think we have a really good opportunity. I think that if we lose to Texas A&M, that's going to be really hard. But if we lose to Texas A&M, it is not the end of the world. That's right, A&M's in Athens, but we travel to Auburn. I tell you, sometimes I get in a moment, I get turned around. We're going to have to play them next year. This will be a fail season if Georgia doesn't end up in Atlanta. Georgia could easily end up in Atlanta, even if we lose to Texas A&M. Texas A&M played us tough last year down to the wire. Texas A&M played quite a few teams down to the wire. Their record last year was not as good. Their record didn't reflect how good they were last year, and they're going to be better this year. Georgia's got to find a breakout star or two in our receiving core. And I kind of talked about that in the J.J. Holloman video and last Saturday. J.J. Holloman's gone, obviously. Somebody's got to step up, and I think that may be fortunate for us because it forces them to put D-Rob in the game. I think D-Rob probably has every bit of talent. Keith Carr said Clemson. Who are they playing week 1 anyway? Are they playing they're not playing Syracuse. Tech? Are they playing Tech week 1? Tech. Wow. What do you So what do you think would happen? What do you think would happen if they came out there and they ran a spread offense and had a little bit of success, and then switched back to the triple option and had a little bit of success and switched back to the spread offense? I mean, how much would your head spin if you were playing that? It's like, man, we didn't prepare for the triple option at all. And if you think about it, that's one of the things that Clemson kind of has to do for that game is they have to prepare for the triple option because Tech does dive at your knees. And most of those players on that team are still triple option players. So I think as a precaution, I think you kind of have to play them. Nobody's played Tech. They have no idea. I think the triple option is in the trash. Don't get me wrong. But what do you think would happen if they did that? I mean, oh man. But what if that's a little bit of showmanship? What if that's a little bit of propaganda? What if he's going to come out there and like, we're not going to run the triple option? He comes out there and runs the triple option. Nobody's ready for it initially. And then in secret, they're still practicing the spread offense. So about 3 games in, everybody's been practicing against the triple option defense. And then they switch over and go spread offense and just hit them with a new style. I mean, it'd be fun to watch. I'm not saying it'd be that successful, but it'd be fun to watch. That's like Uncle Lou, man. When he plays those sim games, and you see the offense for whatever reason in the sim, they'll go to the option play, and it's like, what just happened right here? I'd like to see him go to like an RPO style offense. Yeah, no one knows what the hell is coming with Tech. I don't think there's any way to know. At first, he's going to have to play his players to the best of their abilities. Hey, Carson, thanks for jumping on, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. CIA, make them spin against ghosts. So, yeah, we're getting pretty close to about wrapping the show up. But one more time, guys, don't forget to hit like and subscribe and share. You know, I'd really like to be able to get to 2,000 subscribers, and it's going to take some help. On an average week in the off season, it looks like I've been picking up anywhere from 3 or 4 or even 5 subscribers. And if I do the math right, I've basically got to pick up about 10 a week. So it's doable, but it's certainly going to take some help. So if you guys want to follow, like, subscribe, share, if it's your first time on the channel, I really appreciate it. Don't be scared to jump down in the chat section. Everybody in my chat channel is pretty reasonable. We keep it on a pretty civil tone. Then again, it is the off season, so who knows? I got just a little bit of coffee left. It's killing me. I want to go get more coffee. So what do you guys think about this upcoming season? I think Georgia could very well enter the SEC championship game, you know, and be 12-0, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think Florida should have a decent season. I think very well that they could be 10-2. They could even be 11-1. We'll see what happens. But it's been interesting. And every single week, man, I get off the channel, I get off the feed, and I was like, man, I wanted to cover that. I meant to cover that. I forgot it. And then the next week will roll around, and I'll forget to cover it again. But, the SEC championship game could be one of the greatest games ever. The one last year was phenomenal. The one year before that was really good too. So, golly, I was watching a video of, and I can't remember their dad blame names. It's a guy that we're recruiting right now. He's a cornerback. He's 6'2", and I think he runs a 4.5. He's really fast. And he was running against. It was at the 5-star camp, recruiting camp, training or all-star camp, something like that. It was on Twitter. These guys were going back and forth, and they were making some tough grabs. Some grabs that I haven't seen players on Georgia make in a while. And I'm really Jalen Limber, Kimber, wasn't it Jalen Kimber? Ringo and Kimber, I believe that's it. Those two guys were going back and forth, man. Yeah, golly, those guys look good. And I got to be honest with you, I want Ringo on the team just so I can say Ringo when he catches the ball. I think that would be awesome. Something happens to Tua in week 1 and he's down for a bit. Bama's in big trouble. So let's rewind the tape. Jalen got hurt in the championship game against Georgia, and Jalen came in and finished that game off in dramatic fashion. And Georgia had done a fine job against Tua up until that point, but after he got hurt, that was a problem. Big Dog Brett said he's going to the Vandy game. I'll have to see, man. I don't know if I can make that one or not. Georgia Tech goes down over Clemson over the long run, 50-19. I think Clemson is just going to destroy Georgia Tech. I don't think they have the cornerbacks to keep up with Clemson's receivers. But this is the second injury that Tua has suffered in, just a few months, really. He had an ankle injury before he got over that, and now he's got a hamstring injury apparently. I never like to see players injured. I never want to play a team that's at anything less than their best. I want to beat a team and there be no excuses. I want to beat a team in a fashion that says it's clear that this team was the better team. The ankle was serious, and it's beginning to make me wonder if he's going to be able to be healthy throughout the year. I want the kid to be healthy. I really do. I can guarantee you right now that Nick Saban has got a plan. Keep in mind that whenever Tua came in, he was a true freshman and he played just fine. So I'm sure that he understands it's important to have a good backup. DeAndre Walker going down cost that game, had nothing to do with Jalen. I don't know. Tua is the new RG3. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay healthy. But the good news is that if he's playing against Georgia, he's really doesn't have to worry about being sacked. God almighty. Good quarterback can't stay healthy. One of the things that you will see me get fired up about, and one of the things that I will slam other fans about, even Georgia fans, I'll slam a Georgia fan in a heartbeat for saying that they're glad a player got hurt. There's really only been one player that I've ever had that kind of disdain for, that I was okay with him getting hurt. And he plays pro now, and his name is Ndamukong Suh. Ndamukong Suh is earned the title of one of the dirtiest players in college football several times. That guy he's just mean and nasty for no reason, stomps on players for no reason after the play, just no reason to be that way. So yeah, he played dirty. He did play dirty, and I don't condone that. And the reason is because at the end of the day, a lot of these players could have played anywhere. You know, they chose to play for Alabama or Georgia or Florida, but their home state is somewhere else. And for me to see a player gets hurt, Nick Farley was, yeah, that guy. Anyway. Whenever those players, they get out there on the field and they get injured, and another Georgia fan says, well, that helps the team. I don't want to hear that stuff. Nick Farley, yeah, whatever. When a player gets injured, it hurts my feelings. Even if it's on the other team, it hurts my feelings, because I don't want to win a game that way, and I don't want to see this young man's career possibly injured or ended right here because of an injury. I hate seeing that. When Nick Chubb's leg did what it did, man, that was horrible. And there was a lot of outreach from other teams that said, man, you know, we hate to see a young man that talented get injured. I mean, I hate to see that. Yeah, I gouged the Georgia running back, yes. Now Clemson, where's Tiger at? Tiger Raven. Hey, y'all's guys got to stop giving him the business. Y'all got caught doing that on live TV, man. Fromm may fake an injury this year to prevent himself from going to the Saints, man. God almighty. Whew. A lot can change in between now and then. Yeah, nobody should be robbed of their work. I agree. I hate to see Marcus Lattimore. That was a horrific injury. The way his leg flipped over, man, it was just terrible. Oh yeah, that was horrendous. What was that guy's name? That was it Clowney? What's that?
I said John.
Got some family in town. Lattimore was an athlete. Jadeveon Clowney. If you guys want to see one of the hardest hits in college football, at the end of my hype video, there's a scene where we put a lick on a Tennessee player and it knocks his helmet off. I've only seen one other play like that, and there's a huge gap in between how hard that Tennessee player got hit versus how hard, I think it was a Michigan player got hit. I was originally born in Albany, Georgia, even though I live in Maryland. What? Tiger escaped the Benny? You lucky devil. So, Jadeveon Clowney, I believe it was a Michigan player, but I'm not 100% sure. I have to go back and look. What's going on, Uncle Luke? I see you over in Uncle Luke's channel sometimes in the feed over there. Thanks for jumping on. That lick that Clowney hit that guy with, his helmet popped off like a bottle rocket, man. It just pow. And when you saw that lick, you were like, oh my goodness. And if I'm not mistaken, Jadeveon Clowney picked the football up and ran it in for a touchdown. That was one of the hardest licks I've ever seen. I love watching that guy play, except when we playing him. That guy was an athlete. Oh, man. Yeah, he put a lick on Gurley, too. That guy could play. That dude forgot his own name. That guy forgot what species he was in. That guy didn't know what was going on. That play has been a ton of hype videos, man. Ton of hype videos. He got just. But you know what? For that guy to get back on the field later just is a testament to how tough that guy was. Good night. But what was it? Oh, one of the other things I wanted to bring up, Upshaw versus Cousins. Yep. 63 days until the Hills start football. Hey, what's that new coach y'all got up there? Yeah, it was Scott. No. What's that new coach y'all got up there in the Tar Heels country? What's his name? That helmet was last seen, or that helmet was last seen by the lunar by a lunar rover. Yeah, Mac Brown came from Texas, right? Listen, if Mac Brown will coach with the intensity that he used to coach with at Texas, you guys could have a solid football team again. But if he does like he did his last year at Texas, oh man, Aaron Murray's still having nightmares about Clowney. Aaron Murray is wishing he could still play against Clowney, because man, watching that guy play for the when he was playing for the Atlanta Legends, man, he looked good that first game, like crap after that. Anyway, Matt Sims tried to play, he couldn't play it. That Legends, man, how prophetic was the name of that? Because all of them's gone now. Probably saw heaven for a second after that. Somebody had to help that boy remember how to breathe. Man, he got popped. But so kind of back to the talking about current football. We've got to. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with our defense. We've got to be able to stop the run, and if we can do that, it's going to be a great season. He put up solid stats in college, and he did get drafted in the 5th round. Aaron Murray got bounced around to 4 or 5 teams. He ended up at Kansas City Chiefs for a while. Couldn't get on the field there. I think he went to Philadelphia for a while. Went to the Cardinals for a while. Couldn't get on there. So yeah. Then he played in the Legends and couldn't do anything there. Mother was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and dad was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And live in a house divided behind Ravens and Steelers. Tiger, how in the world did you end up in Albany, Georgia? The place is not far from my hometown. Georgia Tech offense play scheme can be dangerous with the right players. I don't even know what their play scheme is yet, so I mean that very well could be true. Albany, Georgia, man. I'm talk about off the beaten path. Daugherty County is where, for those of you who don't know, Daugherty County is where Albany, Georgia is located, and that place consistently ranks in one of the poorest counties in the country. Yep. Keith Carr, we grew up right outside of Albany. Matter of fact, both of us lived in Albany, Georgia for a number of years. Yeah. Witness relocation. Witness protection, huh? There ain't much about Albany, Georgia I can't tell you about, man. If you guys get a chance to go down there, eat at the Rice Bowl. The place is awesome. Really pumped for a UGA versus the Notre Dame game. That game will be great. I think that's one of the games. So there's some games on our schedule that I want to see us just mollywop somebody, and that's the first one. I want to see Georgia just stomp it and walk it dry. Because I'm so incredibly sick and tired of Notre Dame trying to sneak its way until the college football playoff when it doesn't play in a conference, it doesn't play a conference championship. I'm just tired of it. And essentially, if you beat them in one game, they're completely out. Would you consider Fromm's arm strength average or above average? I would consider his arm strength above average. The guy can throw the ball a long way. Seen him throw some strikes downfield. I think the biggest problem we had is that we had Jim Chaney as an offensive coordinator who was scared to do so. Now, do I think that his arm is of elite strength? No. I would say he's certainly capable of launching it downfield several times a game, but to just consistently do it over and over and over and over again, probably not. Farm strength, in my opinion, is football IQ. Yes. I have Notre Dame going 10-2 losses to UGA and Michigan. That's quite possible, which can get you a long way and is very coachable, which is what the NFL looks for. So if you were to draw up an ideal candidate for college football to be a quarterback in an NFL, you're looking at somebody like Trevor Lawrence, you're looking at somebody like Jake Fromm, and you're looking for somebody like Tua to a point. I think all of those players have outstanding football IQ. Trevor Lawrence has got an arm like you read about, but I think Jake Fromm has outstanding football IQ. I think he can look at the defense and very quickly figure out what's going to be the best play out of the ones that he's been given to use. All right, guys. Well, it's got on here a pretty good while. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and share. Lawrence is a generational talent. You're right, Keith. I'm going to jump off, guys. Got some family here in town, so we're going to see those guys off here in a little bit. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, share. Carson Beck, dude, is pretty good. Carson Beck is really good. Go watch his highlights videos. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate you guys on the channel. I'm surprised every time I jump on here and there's anybody that even jumps on. I'm just incredibly grateful. So thank you guys so much. Have a great day. As always, God bless. Go Dogs.